We start. Okay, get it. Hello, welcome to another episode of Book Drops, and I am Don Boozer, the manager of the literature department here at Cleveland Public Library, as well as the coordinator of the Ohio Center for the Book.
And I'm Sarah Flynn. I am the manager of the Popular Library and don't have quite as long of a title as Don.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yes.
We just wanted to remind you that now that we're in September, happy September, everybody. Happy September, Sarah.
Crazy.
That this is National Library Card Sign-Up Month. So if you do not have a library card, we highly encourage you to get one of your very own. We also wanted to remind you to, if you're looking for your next great read, that you are welcome to go to cpl.org and click the chat box and ask for some recommendations there and share your favorite reads with the people on the service there. And also you can go straight to answers.cpl.org.
And you might get Don or I to answer
you may very well do that.
request.
You may very well do that. That is correct. Today, our focus is going to be on historical fiction, and we have divided up historical fiction completely arbitrarily as things before gunpowder and things after gunpowder. Because before gunpowder, you have your swords and your sandals and that sort of thing, and afterwards, it gets a little bit more different. So, Sarah and I were also talking the other day too about the intersection between historical fiction and historical romances as well, and that will give us the segue for.
Yeah, in 2 weeks, our show is going to be romance-based. So actually, this show, Don is going to do more of the books because it's more of his area, and then in 2 weeks, romance, I'm going to kind of take control over that one. So
I am looking forward to learning all about romance novels.
Yeah, but we were talking about how the two, like whether Outlander, where it should fit. Should it fit in this show? Should it fit in romance? Or is it, it does have a fantastical element, but it's only one fantastical element, which is she walks through the stones and it's time travel. And besides that, it's pretty straightforward history and you learn a lot about Scottish history, and so there's always debate about what is acceptable.
Exactly. One of the things, and I think you bring up a good point, because the whole idea, at least for me, one of the reasons that I like historical fiction is that I think it grows out of my penchant for nonfiction, that I'll read nonfiction books about history and that sort of things, and it's a way to both be entertained and to learn something at the same time. And I know even with Outlander, for instance, I know Diana Gabaldon has done loads of research and that kind of stuff. So you learn, like you said, once you're through the portal, you got to learn how to negotiate the time period. So.
Right. She's just lucky she's a nurse and she can actually has skills that translate. So
a witch.
Oh well, yes. And then I was saying, like, there's Discovery of Witches, which has some history elements to it, but tons of fantasy. So I wouldn't quite put that there.
And it's that spectrum. There's like, you're going to get things on one end or the other side. And so it's an interesting way. But I think whenever you can tell, even if there are fantastical elements or maybe some anachronisms, that whether the author's done their homework or not. If they can really evoke the time period, then it's like, okay. But I think you also mentioned, and this will be the last time we do the teaser for next time. But I think you mentioned that, whenever you have Regency romances, it could be set in any time period. It's like,
right. It's just an excuse to have fancy carriages and balls. And, there's not much history in Regency romances. Very, passing references to the Prince Regent and things like that.
There's breaches involved. It's like, so like I said, we've sort of arbitrarily divided up history here into, pre-gunpowder, post-gunpowder. I'm also going to talk a little bit about some works that are from the time periods that we're going to talk about, especially ancient Greece and Rome, which I seem to have been doing a lot of stuff like that recently. But that's, like I said, one of the things I think that I like about historical fiction is whenever you can really get the sense of a time period. You want to feel like that the characters are reacting to things in the moment, the way they would do that in their time period. That's one of the things with anachronisms that, and for anybody, anachronisms just like things that are not in their particular time. So if you have a particular attitude, or you have an umbrella show up in the Middle Ages or something like that, it's like that's an anachronism. But I think that it's it throws you out of the story whenever you see these things, if they're walking around, in togas or that kind of thing, and then they throw in something, either a phrase or an expletive or something like that just sort of takes you out of the story. I really like it whenever they can tell a good, coherent story, but also make you just locked into that world. I think it's a really interesting way to learn stuff. And good fiction, at least for me, will then encourage me to go and look for information on a nonfiction basis about that time period as well. So it's like, oh man, that was really cool. I want to know more about that. And so that just has a way to just broaden your horizons that way too. So you can be both entertained and educated at the same time.
Definitely.
I did find a really good website that I was not aware of before, and that is historicalnovels.info. According to the site, there are over 700 reviews of historical fiction on that site, and it is an absolutely amazing resource. It looks like it goes up to about 2019, but then I realized that, if we're going to talk 2020, 2021, that's contemporary fiction. So everything before 2019 is historical, technically. So we have that going for us. But it's absolutely amazing. They break it down by time period. They break it down by different regions and countries. It is an absolutely amazing resource. And even within Middle Ages, there's individual parts in there too. It's just an amazing resource. And I found, unfortunately, it's added to my reading list just going through that just to get ready for the for the
you
show.
needed more to read after
I was
doing this.
so many books, so little time. But it even starts out with that site starts out with prehistory. So one of the things that I wanted to do is also to include some comics and graphic novels too. And we're going to start way back with Age of Reptiles by Ricardo Delgado. This is just one. It is a wordless graphic novel about dinosaurs, and it's stories told about dinosaurs. The artwork is absolutely amazing. Here is just an idea of a splash page that has the dinosaurs there. And he even, if I remember correctly, will give them names. So there's actually characters with their names on there, but they never use it. Of course, dinosaurs do not talk. Unbeknownst to Disney, evidently, dinosaurs do not talk. But it's absolutely, the artwork is absolutely amazing. They are engaging stories. You wouldn't think it with it being wordless. It's basically a picture book for adults, because there's some blood and guts flying around, because dinosaurs were known to eat each other. So, you got that. But the artwork is absolutely amazing. I highly recommend at least taking a look at it. Of course, it's a quick read, but it's a quick read in the sense that you can flip through it and get the idea, but you can just luxuriate over the illustrations and stuff too. So it's a very interesting way to approach the whole storytelling thing, and that takes you about that far back in prehistory as you can get. I will mention also in the comics vein, in a nonfiction way, if you're looking for some history, was the cartoon history of the universe in 3 volumes. It's absolutely, I can't recommend it more highly. It is a really interesting, they have done their homework. At the end of each volume, there must be about 10, 12 pages of notes and bibliography and that sort of thing. But it's a really fun way, heavily researched, but it's done in a fun little cartoony style, and you can learn a lot. There's a lot of content in there, and he covers everything from, it's not just a Western focus. It is everything from the beginnings of life on Earth, the whole way up through. Then he goes through China and India and every region of the world. It's an amazing undertaking. So if you're looking for some prehistory up to the present, and he has a series on the modern history as well. It's a really fun way to learn some stuff. So coming a little bit further forward into prehistory, we have we will say the grandmother of all books. And that, of course, is Gino Ells, The Clan of the Cave Bear. I know this is a newer edition, all nice and shiny paperback. But this is what started the whole thing with the cave people and that sort of thing. And I believe you said you read this a while ago.
Yeah,
back in the day.
All of them. They were really fun to read.
And so if you like them, there is a whole Earth's Children series that will that you can follow. Ayla. I'm never quite sure how to pronounce it. Ayla. We'll go with Ayla. Follow her adventures and her family and that kind of thing.
Learned
and so there's
much about life back then, and
exactly. And that's another thing that, from what I remember, Gino Ells did a lot of research into flint knapping and the whole technology of the time and all that kind of stuff. So that's
Everything,
really
hunting, just
exactly. So this is the grandmother of them all right here. So if you want to start somewhere, this is still a good place to start. I just, as a matter of fact, downloaded this today. It's from about 32,000 years ago in Europe, and it also involves the Chauvet cave with the cave paintings in southern France.
yeah.
And so it tells the story of how those paintings got there and all that sort of thing. One thing I thought was interesting was that from what I remember recently, there is some research done that they think that a lot of the paintings were done by women just because of the way the hands are shaped and the sizes and that sort of thing. So I thought that was kind of an interesting way to go. I think there is a guy in this one, though, unfortunately. So I literally just found out about this one not that long ago, but I am really excited to read this one. And it starts, one of the reviews, not to give any spoilers, it's the reviews start out and they talk about the protagonist of the story has to go on a survival. They throw him out into the snow, and he has to make his own clothes, build his own fire, all this sort of thing. And then he finally gets back to camp, and you realize he was 12 years old at the time. So life was rough 32,000 years ago.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, and there was some glare on there. Tell them the title and the author.
Shaman by Kim Stanley Robinson. And Kim Stanley Robinson is actually known for science fiction, but this is a historical fiction novel right there. So it's a really interesting take, I think. Moving into, I didn't grab one off the shelf, but moving into North America, there's a huge series by Kathleen O'Neill Gear and W. Michael Gear called the People series, and it follows different peoples in North America, which I think is really interesting. It's an often neglected area of fiction for that time period too. And there's actually some that are set for the tribes in the Ohio Valley and the Northeast, and so we have some local settings in the series as well. But there's over 25 books in the series. So if you like that time period, I would highly encourage you to check those out and see what they have to offer. I do want to put in a plug for moving forward in time a little bit. I do want to put in a plug for reading some of the quote unquote classics from Greece and Rome. One of the things that, as I was putting this together, I was kind of thinking is that those works from then are literally the contemporary fiction of their time. So you're looking at whatever they were. Look, if you look at Homer and the Iliad and the Odyssey, those were read by every literate person in the ancient world, and they were known by every person in the world. That was what they based the entire civilization on. You could cite Homer for anything you wanted to do, that sort of thing. There are some really good translations out now. There are, for example, Emily Wilson has a newer translation of Homer's Odyssey. So she has brought her own perspective onto the translation. And I saw her on an interview once she was talking about literally, I think the second word in the original Greek, and she had basically 10 minutes talking about how she decided to translate that one word. So it was just absolutely amazing. So Emily Wilson's translation of the Odyssey is really good. Stephen Mitchell has done a translation of the Iliad a while back. So the Iliad, of course, is the story of the Trojan War. I talked about 1,000 Ships by Natalie Haynes, I think the very first one that I just really enjoyed. And so this is going back to the original source material here. So one of the things that, if I can go on a little rant, one of the things that I always do when I'm looking at different translations of the Iliad is, in the original Greek, the first word of the entire poem is meinen, and it's rage. It's Achilles' Rage. Rage is the first word in the book, but a lot of translations will start out, "Sing, O Muse, of the rage of Achilles." If a translation starts out with the word "sing," I don't pick it up, because I think that they're not looking at the way that the original poet wanted to know. He said, the topic of this poem is the rage of Achilles. So that's kind of interesting And they also, there is a list of English translations of Homer on Wikipedia. There's a lengthy list of translations of Homer on Wikipedia. And what's nice is they give the first line of each of those translations, so you can see how they actually start out and what they sound like, and that sort of thing. So that's kind of fun. So, but Robert Fagles is another one that has a good translation of the Iliad out. But Stephen Mitchell, and whenever I want to read something that it was originally written in Greek or Latin, you want to get a feeling of both the emotion that is being conveyed by the original poem, but you also want to get an idea of the rhythm and that sort of thing. That's one of the things that I find sort of off-putting about prose translations of ancient poems, because you completely lose, what it sounded like or that sort of thing. There's on the nature of things, Lucretius's De Rerum Natura. A.E. Stallings did a translation of that, and she stuck to, I think it was iambic pentameter the whole way through all 6 books. So she set herself a challenge, and she did quite well. But you really get a sense of, it's not the same rhythm or meter that was done in the original, but you get an idea of, they had to stick to the same rhythm and meter the whole way through, and she did the same exact thing in her translation. So it is and it's a very readable piece of work too. And we'll discuss another poem here in just a second as well. In the same time period, we also have Eric Schanauer's The Age of Bronze, and that is a graphic novel retelling of the Trojan War. And he's won the Eisner Award. He's won a bunch of other. But what's interesting about it is he actually uses the Bronze Age, the early Bronze Age. Whenever we think of ancient Greece, we always think of the togas and this. I know it's not a toga. But they always the toga-like garments, let's say. But what he's done is actually go back to ancient Mycenae and use those. The dress that they would have worn there and the weapons and all that sort of thing. So it's a really interesting way to get a sense of that. You don't get even the ancient Greeks look back, hundreds of years to whenever the poems were actually set. So I think that's kind of interesting that he decided to take that tack with that particular one. And if I can, I think I mentioned Lucian the last time that we had as one of the beginning ones in science fiction. Ovid is another Latin poet that has some interesting stuff out there. Most everybody knows the Metamorphoses. It's where a lot of the ancient Greek myths are retold and that sort of thing. But one of his works is also the Heroides, which is a series of 15 letters written by women who have been wronged by their husbands or their lovers, which is an interesting take then, because you don't think of that kind of thing in ancient Rome. So, but it's a very interesting, and he has Penelope, who was, of course, Odysseus' wife, waiting for him. He has a great, her letter starts out, where are you? These words your Penelope sends to you, O Ulysses, slow of return that you are, writing back is pointless. Come yourself. And it just goes on from there. So it's a really interesting take. And one of the reasons I wanted to bring that one up too is that Natalie Haynes, again, 1,000 Ships, did a great series of videos on the Heroides, all 15 of them. And that was during the whole COVID lockdown. And the title of the series that she did was Ovid, Not COVID. So, and they're a lot of fun and give you a nice introduction to those works there. We're also going to sort of move forward in time a little bit. We do have, if you are interested in ancient Greece and Rome, there are a number of books that are set either with using the mythology or using the time period. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think? And I didn't give you a heads up for this, but we're going to ask you anyway.
All right.
So why do you think people keep going back to the Greek myths and the Greek gods? And that's because we have, there's like the Song of Achilles. We have Margaret Atwood wrote the Penelopiad, which is the story of the Odyssey, but from Penelope's perspective and the 13 slave women who were hanged at the end of the poem. It's a really interesting, I just started to read this one as well. But there's the 1,000 Ships, the Song of Achilles, Circe, the Penelopiad. There's all kinds of ones that are set in that time period. What do you think draws people back?
I think, just common themes that keep showing up and stories that are interesting even today.
That's true. Yeah. So basically human nature doesn't change. And if you want to, and I suppose, I mean, thinking about it, I suppose what you could do is comment on particular things in human nature, even that go on now, but you can use another perspective to get people to sort of look at it a different way. I think that's one of the reasons that I like the 1,000 Ships so much too, because it's such, everybody is, more or less familiar with the whole idea of the Trojan War. You got to kill it, but to tell it from the perspective of the women, I think gives such a different view of the whole thing. So it's just the coolest thing. One book that is not even released in the United States yet that I really want to read whenever it comes out is The Wolfden by Elodie Harper. It's currently published in the UK, and I saw a thing online where they will give you free shipping in the US if you order it online. But it's based on an actual brothel that was unearthed in Pompeii, and the women who worked there and the men that were involved. And what's cool, I think, is that they actually use some names on the graffiti on the walls as characters in the book. So you get that real connection with the historical time and place and that sort of thing. So I think that's really cool. I'm looking forward to that. If you are interested in Pompeii, Robert Harris wrote a book a while ago entitled Pompeii. It's here somewhere. There we go. Pompeii. It's about what's the guy's Marcus Atilius Primus, who is the new Aquarius, or the water engineer who comes to Pompeii to take care of the aqueducts that feed the city. And he's working on the aqueducts. And then one day the water stops running. Why does the water stop running in the aqueducts? Oh, who could tell? It seems to be shifted. What's going on? And, adventure and chaos ensues. But it's an interesting, and according to this, there is an actual legend about, I don't know whether I should spoil it or not. There's a local legend that actually is reflected in the ending of the book as well, which is kind of cool. So I'm not going to give it away. So, and I will say that I can't talk about this time period without bringing up Miller's 300. It was, of course, made into a movie. One of the things I like about and this is one of those things where they didn't dress like that, and no, they did not. But my rationalization for liking this book, not that I need one, is the whole idea that this is the Battle of Thermopylae against the Persian invasion of Greece, told in a mythological setting. So this is why you have all the buff guys, running around in their underwear, basically. But this is like the ultra heroic sort of version of what happened and that sort of thing. But the cool thing about what they've done in here and what they did in the movie is that they actually use some lines from the ancient sources, which I think is the coolest thing. So whenever King Leonidas says, eat hearty because tonight we dine in hell, that's straight from Plutarch and that sort of stuff. And there's a couple other lines too. The whole one about telling the Persians to if they give us the Persians say give us your weapons, and King Leonidas says come and take them, straight out of the sources. So molon labe is the whole is the Greek there for come and take them. So that's it. So he knew the story. He knew the ancient sources, and I think it's just the coolest thing. He was able to incorporate them into this grand mythological retelling of the battle itself. So I think that was kind of cool. So from there, we can move on to and forgot. We have two more. So 300 is the Battle of Thermopylae. Gates of Fire by Stephen Pressfield is also about the Battle of Thermopylae. I just found out as I was putting this together that this book is on the reading list for the Commandant of the Marine Corps. It's taught at several military academies. And Stephen Pressfield, I know, has written a number of books that are well respected by the military officers and that sort of thing. So it's the coolest thing. But this follows basically the Battle of Thermopylae and gives the story from the viewpoint of, I believe it was like one of 3 survivors of the battle or something of that. So unlike the movie, there were some people that did come through somehow from the battle. But I think this is a nice narrative retelling. If you don't want to delve into 300 with abs galore, you can read Stephen Pressfield's Gates of Fire. Now that'll give you a good thing there as well. On a lighter note, we have Lindsey Davis, who writes basically detectives in ancient Rome. So Marcus Didio Falco is the main character in the one series that she wrote. And this is actually a book in the series where his daughter takes over his role in the investigations of murders and plots and things like that. So this particular book here, Enemies at Home, is based on the idea that the Romans were actually afraid of their slaves because they were never quite sure whether they were loyal or not. So if something bad happens in the house, the slaves are the first ones to blame. And something bad happens to somebody in their house, and of course all the slaves in the house are scared to death and they run off and try and find sanctuary and this kind of thing. So that's how that all starts with this one. But this is actually Marcus's daughter. So there's a whole big, if you like historical fiction and you like detective fiction, then go for that's a mix there as well. Which brings us to Ellis Peters, the Brother Cadfael, which was a TV series, British TV series for a long time. This is another series that has umpteen thousand books in it. So if you like that sort of genre, it's a nice way to sort of nice, easy read, nice little page turn that you can get with that. Moving more then into the Middle Ages, we have Bernard Cornwell. Bernard Cornwell is another one of those prolific authors that if you like this particular genre, this one is actually is the one that is used that they based the TV series. I can't remember what it is now. It was right on the tip of my tongue too. I'm sure somebody knows it out there, but and I think it might even be The Last Kingdom. I think it is The Last Kingdom, as a matter of fact. Yeah. Geez, what is the name of the TV series? I don't know. So we have and he's written things on Stonehenge and from the higher Middle Ages, that sort of thing. But again, he is a page turner. He's also the one I believe that wrote the Sharp novels. Is Bernard Cornwell Sharp novels? So I want to say yes. So he's another one that's written. Patrick O'Brien was
Master and Commander.
Master and Commander. Yeah. Okay, so he wrote Sharp. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. You'd think I would prepare for these things, but yeah, he literally has like 2 or 3 shelves of books on the shelf too. That if you like that time period, this is a great page turner, and he's another person who really does his homework too. So I will say we're running out of time here, so I will put in a plug for Edward Rutherford. This is Sarum, and you can see that is a doorstopper of a book right there. But what's fun about Sarum and some of the other books that Edward Rutherford has written is that he will take family members from prehistory and follow them the whole way up through the ages. And you can see family resemblances and personality traits and things like that through the years and centuries and millennia sometimes. And I think it's an interesting way to approach history, and it really digs deep into the way that the different time periods appeared into the different members of those families. And I think it's just a way to really introduce that kind of thing. But the fact that he was able to, there's Sarum, there's one on Russia, there's one on London, there's Paris, and he does basically the same thing in all of them and just takes it, up through the years. And I think like I said, it's just an interesting way to approach that subject. So, wow. And Ken Fullette is another one. I think he just recently wrote a sequel to Pillars of the Earth as well, not that long ago. So the Pillars of the Earth is about the building of a cathedral, and it's an interesting way to sort of delve into that as well. So if you're interested in medieval history, Edward Rutherford, Bernard Cornwell, Ken Fullette, all those people are going to have dig deep into the age for you. Mm-hmm. So that brings us to the end of another Book Drops, and I talked a lot on this one, and you can look forward to Sarah talking a lot next time on the romance novels that we will learn about. And so we thank you for joining us and hope you enjoyed yourself, and happy reading.